Welcome to the Intuitive Inc. radio show live with your host, Servet Hassan, with another inspiring author who can help you discover your true potential. Live on Clear Source Radio.
Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I am indeed Servet Hassan. I've got a great show for you tonight, especially if you want to be creative or you are already creative and want to increase your creativity. I've got a wonderful guest. Her name is Erin Byron. She's written a book called Yoga for the Creative Soul. She is a registered psychotherapist, an author, a speaker. She co-founded one of the first internationally accredited yoga therapist training programs, and she leads retreats all over the world. She's the co-author already of Yoga Therapy for Stress and Anxiety. Who could use that? And she's also the co-editor of Llewellyn's complete book of Mindful Living, which included such contributors, such well-known people like Jack Canfield and Michael Beckwith, and yours truly has 2 chapters in that book as well, which is how I met Erin. So welcome, Erin Byron. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Servet. It's great to be continuing our work together. I'm looking forward to chatting with you tonight.
Oh, me too. I can't tell you. I was just telling her before we went live on the air that I could do this show for about 3 hours because there's so much to say. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to condense it, or you're going to have to go out and buy the book because it actually is really super good and so practical. That's the part I really loved, is that it's also practical and very personal. So we'll get to that. But first of all, how did this all start? Erin, I read in the beginning of the book that your thesis, I believe, for your master's program was yoga therapy for post-traumatic stress, which is kind of where you've been going all these years, right?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't just doing, of course, the body movement, the stretches or the asanas, the poses are a part of yoga. And in the West, it's what most people think of as yoga. But for me, my journey into yoga was much more philosophical as I was working through healing my own trauma and supporting others, as I continue to do, in healing their trauma and really understanding what have these impacts been and how can I grow out of this into a more whole and vibrant version of myself. So Yoga for the Creative Soul sprouted out of that rich soil.
Wow. Well, yes, because you do talk about the yoga psychology, which, is deeper than what most people think of. Well, let's just do down dog, and downward dog and Warrior 1 and 2. And there's a whole psychology behind this as well, which is really interesting. And you touch on that because you get into the 5 paths to self-realization too, right?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And just thinking about how there's different learning styles or different approaches or beliefs to life, the yoga gives us different paths that we can follow to knowing who we really are, or you could think of that as being enlightened maybe. Mm-hmm. And likewise with creativity, similar to learning, similar to our spiritual aptitudes and interests, we can tap into those 5 different ways of being and really access those hidden talents or aspects of self-expression that we might be trying to unearth.
Exactly. And you talk about creativity. Creativity is not necessarily like what you and I do where we're writing, or an artist that paints a painting. You talk about cooking and humming even, I think. And I went, and then I started humming and I thought, this is interesting. It's all kinds of, it's just being expressive, right?
Yes, exactly. In some ways, everything we do in our lives is a creative act. We're creating a mood in a room just by the personality that we're bringing to it. We're creating thought forms in others' minds when we talk about how we're doing or things that happened to us that day. We're continually creating, and cooking certainly is a creative act, or gardening. I played with a lot of ideas when I was writing this book about in what ways do people create, because I didn't want to be saying, you mentioned how it's practical. So there's lots of ways to interact with the content. And I didn't always want to be saying, write this or draw that or move in these ways. I wanted to really make this accessible for anybody, even those people who say, oh, I'm not a creative type, I'm not creative at all, because I believe that all of us being created by some divine creator are creative in our own way.
Exactly. Well put. And also in the beginning of the book, you say that you wrote this to put you in alignment with the truth of your life. And I liked that because the act of being creative is just like what you just said. So in the end, what you are creating is your life. It's your life. So what could be more glorious than creating a life that you adore, you know?
Yes, that is the whole point. And to empower readers to be thinking of it that way, moment by moment, day by day, year by year. What am I creating? Is this the life that I want to be creating? And if it is, hooray, how do I celebrate that? And if it's not, in what simple but manageable ways can I shift it into the life that I want to create?
Right. Exactly. So now you start the book out with all of the blocks, the things that stop us from that. Because again, you know, you can be creative in a practical way like writing or art or anything, but I'm going to go for we're creating our life because that's all a part of that as well. So I think it's the same thing that blocks people from most things in life, right? Like fear.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it shows up in so many forms and it's really sneaky. So for us to be able to distill it down to the essence of the various kinds of blocks can be really useful when we think we're just procrastinating or the inner critic is speaking a little too loudly over top of our creative selves. To be able to go, wait a second, what's really going on here, and work through those blocks, even in small, simple ways, free us up so much to create the lives of our dreams.
Right. Well, first of all, you have exercises in the book too, which make it practical, which is incorporating all of the yoga postures, and so you're not floating over those either. It's right.
No, absolutely. Certainly, this entire book was written. You know, it was a really interesting balance, actually, Servette, because I was thinking about the reader as I was writing every single sentence and creating every single activity in the book. But the book sprang from my own life and experience and healing journey. So in equal measure, I guess, both me and the cherished reader are in this book. But I wanted to make sure when somebody who might not have studied yoga philosophy engaged with this book, that they would be getting a lot of what they were expecting thinking yoga was as well. So there's a lot of asana-based activities in there and breathing practices and visualizations, meditation type activities for the reader. I tried to really balance it out and make sure that yoga as we think of it in the West was well represented, as well as the context of its philosophy.
Well, I think you did that. I absolutely think you accomplished that, because really honestly you get into the obstacles, you talk about it, then you give exercises that complement that. Like even when you start off with the book, it's like, what's your motivation? And then there's an exercise immediately for that. One of my favorite ones was, why is that guy such a jerk? I actually wrote that one down. But that's about actually understanding your triggers. So
yes.
Right. But I mean, so that's the level of practicality that it gets to. But I think you talk about the way you structured the book, because you do start with blocks and obstacles. And then
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. So I structured the book. I thought, hey, I want to write this in such a way that if somebody just picked it up and said, what do I need today, and opened to a random page, there would be something there for them. A little paragraph to a page explanation of an idea, and then an activity that gives the reader a chance to apply that idea. And then I divided it into 3 parts for somebody who might want to do this in order. So part 1 is removing the blocks. Are we going to take any action if we're still facing obstacles? Not likely. So if a person is feeling really stuck in finding that path to self-expression or creating the life of their dreams, the life they want to be creating, let's look at what's standing in the way first and shove it out of our way. And then part two, I thought, hey, let's now look at who am I? In what way do I relate to my creative self and my spirituality? What do I want to express? And that's part two. And part three, so near and dear to my heart, I looked at the neuroscience of spirituality, of personal growth, of yoga and self-realization, and how does that affect our creativity, as well as how can we use our creative selves to create a better society at large? Mm-hmm. I really think we're at a tipping point in our society right now, and they say that the pen is mightier than the sword. Now more than ever, we need people with good hearts, with spiritual ideas and belief and connectedness to be expressing themselves and finding one another. So that's part three.
No.
So in general, that's how it was structured, but
right.
Open to a random page and go for it.
Right, you can. And there are people that are going to have different experiences going on in their life at the time that maybe, like you said, if someone's needs to know about addiction and is using a yoga practice for that, they may go to a chapter called Toward and Away and things like that, right? I mean, it's...
Yes.
Okay. So...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that I think makes it extremely practical because you can do it that way too. But I think I think anyone should go through it, and I do love the part three. Human is one chapter, being is one chapter, and I think we forget what it's like to be a human that's just being. So and that's part of the five paths to self-realization that are yoga. So can you talk about that a little bit? Karma, Jnana, Raja, Bhakti, Tantra? Yeah.
Absolutely. So 4 of these 5 paths are identified so yoga, of course, is a 5,000-year-old tradition that originated in India. And out of this epic poem called the Mahabharata, they pulled the Bhagavad Gita, which speaks of yoga 2,000 or more years ago. And in the Bhagavad Gita, they identify 4 paths to enlightenment. And then in the way I was taught, we also include a 5th path. So the first path that I talk about in the book, there, chapter 6 in part 2, is the path of a purpose. So this is the path where, actually, let me talk about. I'm going to list the 5 paths first.
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there is the Karma Yoga path. Mm-hmm. So that is the path of purpose. There's the Raja Yoga path. That's the system of the 8 limbs of yoga. There's the Bhakti Yoga path. So this is the devoted path, the heart-centered emotional path. There's the Gyan path, and this is a path for the intellect, for the thinker. And then so those are the 4 that are identified in the Bhagavad Gita. And then there's the Tantra path, which is using the senses, often thought to be a distraction to enlightenment, as the gateway into the true self.
Oh, interesting. So the others, that's the one that's not mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita, exactly.
Yeah, well, I call it Gita, and I haven't said the whole thing for so long. Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. So anyway, you're right. So, and with the highest, isn't the highest form of the 4 or 5 paths that we pick that exist now just being? Because if you translate them, there's doing, thinking, feeling, and being. Kind of. I mean, it's Sanskrit is such an interesting language that you have to kind of. It is. But that's.
And it's truly. I mean, there's another hour-long show is just Sanskrit alone. Yeah. How many of the concepts in yoga do not have English counterparts? We're so far away in some ways from the beauty of these teachings that we don't anymore have the words to even describe them.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're talking about here in terms of the being is that's like basking in the true self in every moment. So when we meet the eyes of another person, we recognize our own humanity in them. As we're singing or cooking, we're sensing the spirit that's in all acts. So it's not doing anymore. It is being that whole self.
Exactly. So you doing, actually, the way I was taught, doing was actually the lowest form of beingness, of existing. And then the highest form was just being. So yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting because we could do a whole show on that, alone. That's why I said when I read the book, I read Yoga for the Creative Soul, and I thought, great, how am I going to put this all in 1 hour? I just, it's like there's so much to say. It's hard to put it all in 1 hour. So I suggest people go get the book. It's Yoga for the Creative Soul. We're on the line with Erin Byron, who's written this book, and it's amazing. The subtitle is Exploring the 5 Paths of Yoga to Reclaim Your Expressive Spirit. So that kind of says it all right there. So where can they find this, and where can they find you, Erin?
Yes, well, the simplest way is yogaforthecreativesoul.com. You can email me directly from that website. You can order that book at a click of the button off the homepage. The book is available on all your major online booksellers, here at Amazon, and here in Chapters we have Indigo as well, right. Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. Yes, and your local bookstore probably will have it as well. If not, you can ask them to order it in, and there it will be.
Yay. Good. It's absolutely fabulous, I think, because it's helpful. It's not just going to Yoga Works and doing the poses. This is deeper, and that's a good thing, because then you can still go to those places and do those poses, but you'll be doing things differently.
Yes, exactly. What I was going to say is the hope is that it brings a richness to the yoga class. Keep going to your weekly yoga classes and let them be informed by how you're playing with Yoga for the Creative Soul, and get so much more out of both of those things.
Right, because at the
book
same
and the class.
Exactly, because then at the same time you can be doing your own thing while you're in those poses or postures, and or even meditation. You're doing a different practice, 2 practices, right?
Yeah.
And that's your life's work. Are you doing workshops, and are you out and about, or are you traveling at all?
Definitely traveling. Mm-hmm. Just back from Philadelphia. I have a home base out of Philadelphia. I'm there several times a year. I'm running a Yoga for Trauma certificate program there in August. Mm-hmm. And next week, just in a few short days, actually, I'm headed off to New Hampshire. So,
wow.
And those are a couple of mentionables, but I am on the move pretty continually.
But that's good. That's good. And that they can find that out on yogaforthecreativesoul.com as well. Or do you have your own? Yes,
exactly. There's a click through to my events calendar. The events calendar will take them to my home site, erinbyron.com. But yogaforthecreativesoul.com has that click through right on it. It's the only website they need to get a hold of me or to find me.
Good. I'm going to spell your name, though, because it's very unusual. So it's Erin, and it's Byron. So yes, you can find it all there. And then like I said, there's so much to talk about, but I really honestly love the book. I thought it's very practical and very useful. And it's something you can sort of tweak. Like you had something in there that I'm doing this verbatim because I read it a few days ago, but it was like, do bad art or something like that. And I loved that. Yes. I loved that. I had a chapter in one of the books I wrote, and I can't remember which one, but it was like, be fat, be angry, be afraid. And it was the same kind of concept. It's like, let yourself go. Be who you are. Right?
If we're not going to do that shadow work, if we're not willing to let the parts of ourselves that we think we're not allowed to be see the light of day in life, how can we be whole? How can we be our entire selves if we're blocking off these little inklings that want to express themselves somehow, we can't be our true self. So we must, and I'm not saying be angry all the time, feed yourself only junk food all the time.
Right,
but of course, if the more we try to suppress it or repress it, the more it comes out in unexpected and destructive ways.
Exactly. Now, give an example of how you would use yoga to help that. If you...
Oh, no.
Okay.
Well, you put me on the spot.
Oh, no. Or
So,
something. No, I don't want to do that.
Because there's so many different ways, and it would depend on the individual that I'm working with. But, the why is that guy such a jerk exercise in Yoga for the Creative Soul, that's the point of it, is to take a look at, okay, what's really going on in my shadow self. And we can play a little bit from a yoga pose philosophy, like a yoga pose approach with that, in terms of what's my favorite pose and how do I feel when I'm in this pose. Usually one's favorite pose would be the one that they're so-called good at, right? And then, well, what's my least favorite pose, or what pose makes me feel awkward or insecure? And to let ourselves kind of play with the opposites, or kind of like you started the discussion of this question, to make that art that doesn't look the way we want it to go into the medium that we struggle with, gives us a chance to face that shadow.
Right. And I was going to say, when you said I put you on the spot, I was going to say, well, tell us about the guy, why that guy's such a jerk. And you did anyway, because it's good to go. And it's true. I think then if you're using the poses I think that's how this book works. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you wrote it, but I think it's to use the physical aspect to enhance the mental and spiritual.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And vice versa, to allow the mental to have an embodied reality.
Yeah. There's so many things like that, also there was another chapter about, play is a need. I think that we forget that. I think that we need, because, yoga in the end is meant to relax, to open us up, to, physically kind of loosen us up. But at the same time, I think it does that to your psyche if you allow it to. And part of all of that is play. Yes or no?
Certainly.
Okay.
We forget how to play. Not only do we forget that it's important, or certainly that it's a need, when somebody gives us the time and space to play, we don't always know what to do with it. It can be incredibly scary.
Yeah, I know. See, I thought that could sometimes be a block too,
Certainly.
I mean, there's a lot of blocks that we have, I think you mentioned fear. Well, I mentioned fear, but there's other things, your ego, attachment, all these things that come up. And I think one of them too is that we forget how to play. And I think I look at yoga, when I do my yoga practice, I think of it as playing too. I do meditate towards the end, but I think of that as just play. It's fun to me.
Yes, and what a beautiful practice when we have that freedom to play. Play doesn't always mean games. Sometimes play just means dabble around, have fun, color outside the lines. Don't do what you're supposed to do. That's why we forget how to play, is we get so locked down by shoulds and have-tos.
Well, you're using this for amazing things. You're really helping cure people. I'm sure it's a combination of everything, but is a lot of it just the breathing aspect as well?
For some people, that's certainly true, that it's the breathing aspect. And in today's society, breathing is one of the most important teachings of yoga because of the effect of stress on the nervous system. The body no longer knows how to breathe in effective and healthy ways. And then that affects our emotions, it affects our thought forms, it affects our nervous systems. And we can't play if there's stress caught in our breath. If we don't know how to breathe deeply and laugh, there's no room for it.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I think that's really, really important. And I think that kind of is yoga. The breathing aspect is the heart of it, I think. I mean,
yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah, it's funny because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about which path you are, right? That perhaps people on the Tantra path would say that breathing is the heart of it, or those who are using the eightfold system, of those 8 steps, breath lands right in the middle. So there's a few different ways where you're saying that, but if you were to ask maybe an engineering type of person, somebody who's using more of the gi on the intellectual path, we'd need to explain the science of the breath to them in order for them to even connect the dots and care so much about it, because they're more interested in, well, tell me about the studies and tell me about the philosophical works of the many sages who've come before, right? That all of us have these different inroads.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I guess. Well, that's how you help people. So you help people because you personally, when you go one-on-one or you're doing workshops and things like that, is you get into that person specifically and then go from there and work with them that way, right?
Yes. I really believe in the importance of the uniqueness of the soul, that we're all made up of the same stuff. You put us under an electron microscope and we're all going to look the same. Dissect our needs as far as we need them to be, and we just want to be loved and appreciated and have an impact, right? So there are these threads that are the same through almost all of us or all of us, but there's also the fact that existing as we are as separate individuals, there's a uniqueness in us. And at any given moment in time, we're going to need something different from the person beside us. So I do truly seek that whole person approach and allow each person to be him or herself as they're doing this exploration. So in Yoga for the Creative Soul, that's one of the many reasons I included an activity on almost every page, is to make sure that folks can access their individuality and leverage that to feel more free, creative, playful, happy.
Right. Because everybody's different. They are. And I think that's important. I do.
Yeah.
Because you're so about healing. And then you went to Yoga for the Creative Soul. But in the end, it's the same, I think. Is that why you picked that particular way to approach this subject? Because we are creating.
Yes, exactly. And there are a lot of reasons why this topic for me exists right now, because of what I needed in my healing journey the year before I wrote this book. So I went through more or less what this book brings now to every reader.
Good. That's the way it should be. And that's what helps heal other people, is because you're telling your truth and it shines through, and that's what helps heal people, not some mechanical, the system will work, here you go, A, B, C, D. That may or may not work for some people, but I honestly think that's really important. We're halfway through the show, Erin. I'm going to open the lines. We've had some difficulty with callers calling in. I'm going to try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll have you text your questions, or if you'd prefer to, you can text questions to my office line, which is 949-735-3983. If you're brave and you want to try, we're working out new systems here. We're now on iHeart, but I'm telling you, in the next month or two, we'll have this all straightened out. But in the meantime, if you're brave enough to try the on-air line here, 949-313-8880. I'm on the line with Erin Byron, who's written a book called Yoga for the Creative Soul, and she is a pro. She knows her stuff. And if you have a question about yoga and how it can help your creativity or just help you in your life in general, give us a call, 949-313-8880. Erin, part of the book is about change your brain, change your life. I don't think that's a chapter, but I think that's something I read, and I made note of that. Because that's true, all enlightened people have been talking about that for a long time. Can you expand on that a little?
Yes,
With
it's
yoga?
multi-layered, isn't it? Change your brain, change your life, because some of it is that whole how we go through life is 1% what happens to us and 99% our perspective on what happens to us. Mm-hmm. And some of it is about the newest brain research, how from a neuroplastic perspective, when we change how we feel, how we perceive, how we behave, the anatomical brain actually changes size and shape.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And as we change our beliefs, change our feelings, change our brains, of course, on the inside as things are changing, that changes everything on the outside as well.
Right. So it all starts there. And yoga, I think, is one way to change your brain.
Absolutely. The research on neuroplasticity in yoga, the research on yoga for emotional healing, and certainly just anecdotally for myself and at this point the thousands of people that I've worked with who have seen such profound changes in their lives, in their feelings from their yoga practice is so inspiring.
Okay, when you say yoga practice, Erin, how do you define that? Should it be daily? Should it be weekly? Should it be at least two? Like, for instance, if I don't meditate every day, I know a lot of people don't, but I've been doing it for 100 years. And so, honestly, if I don't meditate in the morning by first thing in the morning, 15 minutes, that's all it takes, I'm a wreck by noon.
That's right. You feel it.
Yeah, I'm bouncing into walls. I'm in a bad mood. I don't know. And it's very rare. It's like forgetting to brush my teeth. After a little while you go, something's not right because you never forget that.
What's fuzzy?
Yeah.
Something smells bad.
Then I stop and meditate. Is it the same thing with what's your yoga practice? And then what do you suggest for other people, for most people?
I'm going to answer the second part first, that the suggestion goes back to that uniqueness and individuality. So, and then also the paradox of the commonality. So the commonality, find some kind of consistency, even if your consistency is inconsistent. We all need it to be a touchstone. So whatever that means, whether that's done at the same time of day, like you mentioned in the morning. For me, it's a morning practice as well. It sets the tone of the day. But I do also have an evening practice, and technically a midday practice as well. When we practice, it starts to just seep into all of life's moments. And then we're back to what you were talking about, the being versus the doing, that practice becomes a state of mind. Practice becomes an orientation, a belief system, an approach to life. But in the early stages, for folks who are just like, I need a yoga practice, how do I even do that? Have a look at your day. And my mentor and our co-author in Llewellyn's Complete Book of Mindful Living, Dr. Robert Butera, taught me this, that you look at the day and you spend about a week and you're just like, where might I be able to fit 5 to 7 minutes? And then once you figured out, it's after I've gotten the kids to school, but before I have to start my job, or it is after work, I need to walk the dogs first, and then I can have my 5 to 7 minutes. But somewhere in the routine, rather than guided by the clock, in that 5 to 7 minutes, do something meaningful and calming for you, whether that's reading spiritual works, doing a meditation, taking deep breaths, doing some stretching or yoga poses, a quiet walk, or even a tea and watching the birds. Do something that reconnects you during that 5 to 7 minutes, and that practice just builds and builds.
Right. Well, exactly. So it does become a state of mind. Like I said, if I don't meditate, something's not right. I wouldn't be able to go on with my day. I would be like, like I said, not brushing my teeth. It's funny, because you say 5 to 7 minutes and people complain about that. It's really hard for them to find. And I thought, well, you wouldn't have hard time finding time to take a shower or, but you have to
Or
incorporate it.
watch
You
your
have to
favorite
start.
TV show.
Hmm? Oh, exactly.
Or,
So you have to find a way to connect it into you. First thing in the morning, I think, too, is really important. But if you can't do it then, any time will help. And I do an evening practice, too.
Yes. My guideline has been to do my best to get to practice before I think, which might sound funny, but the guideline is as soon as I wake up, stretch, get out of bed, go to my practice space and read some spiritual work, then repeat the words that I just read in my mind for the rest of the practice. Because as soon as my pesky little ego has a thought, the quality of and I do transcendental meditation, the quality of my meditation gets knocked back a peg. Because now there's another monkey in my mind throwing in its 2 cents. And it wakes up another monkey, and it wakes up another monkey. And it's very easy for our minds to become busy, even after all these years of meditating.
Oh, God, yeah. I've been doing it forever. It's still, sometimes, I don't do that. I don't even get out of bed. I don't put a foot on the ground. I don't stay laying down. I do sit up, and I do prop the pillow behind me, and I say, okay, I just need to connect. And I do. And then I can get out of bed. And the other thing I do is I don't turn anything on for the first hour. I never...
Oh, no.
First hour of the day, I don't look at my phone. I don't turn on the TV. I don't do anything. I do my practice, and then I walk 1.5 miles with my dog. And then I can go into whatever. But it's the first hour of the day I feel is really important. And that's a good time to try. People can wake up 5 or 10 minutes early. I think that could.
That's right. And it won't take away from the quality of the day, but it can add so much. And, I really appreciate the way you're describing your practice. I think the longer we're involved in those daily routines, the more obvious, important, or even essential it becomes. Of course, we don't turn a device on for the first hour. Of course, we must start the practice immediately upon waking. But for someone who's new to it, and you can think back to when you first started. I certainly can think back to when I first started. We both have the testimonies we can give to how tough it was to get to the place where now it's easy to not turn on the device for the first hour. It's easy to get out there with the dog after we've had a nice meditation. And in the beginning, if you don't feel that way, that's okay. None of us did.
Oh gosh, you're so cute. I'm old, so there were no devices when I started. There were no cell phones.
Oh, well, there was television, but yeah.
Well, there was TV, yeah. But you had to walk up to the TV and turn it on with the knob. You didn't even have a remote control. So no, seriously, because I'm 60, so it's just I think I started 42 years ago, 43 years ago. So, but still, you're right, because back then too, I wasn't doing it every morning first thing, half the time it was oh my God, I have a hangover. I was not. Sure. Yeah. It took a while.
There's always a reason not to practice.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The practice itself is the reason to come back.
Well, also I saw the results. 5 minutes in the morning, I swear, 5 minutes in the morning can change your life. And that, to me, was worth more, or just for me personally, that had more effect on my life than 20 minutes of meditation every 2 or 3 times a week. Just that 5 minutes in the morning. And then when I realized that, I was okay. Because you know what it was like for me, Erin, really, and then I want to get back to you. But it was really honestly, I'm on my knees, and God help me, please. I can't do, I am down on my knees, and I've been to hell and back a few times, and did the practice, got back up, and then fell down on my knees again, and I'm oh, God help me. And then finally I got to a place where, you know what? Why don't we just stay here? Let's just not do this anymore. Let's just stay here and do the practice every day and not go to that other place anymore. Now it took a long time, But that's where I got to. That's what got me into this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So well said. So well said. It doesn't take much every day, but if it's every day, it changes our lives really quickly.
Right. And you go to a different place. And that's why I like the book, Yoga for the Creative Soul, because you can go to anywhere in the book and pick up an exercise for almost anything you're going through. Right?
Yes, the psychotherapist in me couldn't keep herself out of this one, because of how powerful the self-expression is in healing whatever we're going through. So you mentioned how I do talk about addictions in the book. I talk about trauma. I do some body reclaiming practices in there as well. That whatever anxiety, of course, is discussed in there. Depression, I think, comes up numerous times in the book because we need practical, grounded, spiritual outlets in order to relieve ourselves of those. And I know that neurochemistry is involved, that these practices have been proven to shift our neurochemistry. So Yoga for the Creative Soul is one of many ways that we can get ourselves on the floor in the way that's beneficial rather than throwing ourselves down the way you're describing and just feeling like we're at the end of our rope.
Exactly. And I think this is really important right now, too, because a lot of people are only finding expression through things like social media. And it's causing more and more depression. It's causing more and more addiction. There's a show on tonight on CNN about, I haven't watched much of her. I don't think I've watched her at all, though Lisa Ling is doing a show about it. And I just saw the promo, and it was like this, she was with a group of young girls, and she said, "Are you addicted to your phones, your cell phones?" And they all said yes.
Yeah.
And the statistics are proving that depression and anxiety in teenagers has gone through the roof. And,
yes.
Yeah, so I think it's a good thing if we can get people, not just all of us, away from devices. I mean, because this is happening to adults too. So if we can get away at all from these devices and these computers and these cell phones and just have a practice like yoga, it could really help a lot, because it just takes you away from, you can't have your cell phone and your computer going. I mean, you can if you're following someone who's showing you some yoga poses on the computer or whatever, but you're not looking at your social media page going, why are they saying that about me?
No, it's rich time for the self to get away from the blue screens, the devices, the noise of social media. And, there's two sides to everything, and I understand there is certainly an argument for social media, and that's fine. But what we're talking about right now is going a little quieter and a little calmer into the place where everything's okay. Even beyond the anxiety, beyond the addiction, the depression, the trauma, there is a place where everything's okay. And yoga is a system that's been designed to support us in connecting to that place.
And the system doesn't just involve exercise. It involves quiet. It involves breathing. It involves a lot of things that you get into and that you talk about, which is why I like it. It's good. And I honestly think part of the most important part of the book, I thought, was, it's all good. But I think part one was good, because unless you can really get past what's stopping you, those obstacles that lay between you and your expressive self to create who you want to be, you need to push past that. And I thought that was really well done. I did.
Thank you. Yeah, they were very wise, and Patanjali wrote down these threads of wisdom in the Yoga Sutras, and there are numerous sutras written about obstacles to enlightenment. So what I tried to do is just take that ancient wisdom and use common language and fun, expressive activities to say, let's kind of look at things from this point of view and see, are there ways that you could get out of your own way? Are there ways that you could remove some of the blocks that are stopping you from living the life you want to be and feeling the way you want to feel?
Right. And also, it's good for you. It's good to move. It's good to, I'm a cancer survivor and went through a very extensive surgery last year. And yoga is one of the few things that's building my body back too. Healing it, not just internally, but externally. It's just good for you, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So many different ways, so many different levels and layers.
Well, we're running out of time, everybody. If you have a call in now. It's 949-313-8880. I know what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to say, oh, I have a question, and I got it after the show. And so if that's that happens a lot. I get a ton of emails the next day or later tonight or, and that's fine. If that's the case, you can always reach out to Erin herself, right?
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah, at yoga. Go ahead.
yogaforthecreativesoul.com.
Mm-hmm.
And clickety-click to the contact information, and please do send me your questions. And tonight, as well as if you choose to send out an email, these can be questions about the mental health struggles that you're having, how to apply yoga and or creativity to the way that you're feeling, or just ways if you're looking for inspiration or ways to get out of your own way and come home to the self you are. Any questions about those sorts of things are more than welcome.
Okay, well, that's going to happen, I'm sure, because that's what people have a fear of calling in and talking about something so personal. So yeah. I think that, and sometimes I get a ton of calls and sometimes they'll catch you later, like I said. So that's okay.
Okay.
The name of the book is Yoga for the Creative Soul. It's awesome. I highly recommend it because it's full of practical exercises. You can pick it up at any place in the book. You don't have to, start from the beginning and go to the end. You can start in the middle and then go to the beginning and then go to you can do it any which way you want, because when you look at the book itself, you just know where you need to go for you. I liked that. I liked the way you set it up, Erin. It's really well done. It's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on yogaforthecreativesoul.com and or any of your book places that you go these days. I really loved it. We're winding down, Erin. Is there anything we didn't talk about in the book that you wanted to say?
Not specifically. I feel like we really covered most of it. The big passion project that I'm on right now is about using our self-expression and creativity, our humor and our play to make the world a better place. So when I'm in New Hampshire, I'm presenting at a place called Seacoast Expressive Arts, and what they're doing is we're all getting together and doing mini collages and then printing them off as cards and leaving them about the community to inspire people into just small acts of social justice, whether that's having a conversation with a homeless person or, taking the hashtag Me Too movement from sharing stories and supporting one another to volunteering our time on crisis lines. Just these small, simple things that we can do where we're creating feelings within ourselves of connectivity and then bringing that connectivity and expressivity out into the community. So that's an example of the way that they're doing it there in New Hampshire at Seacoast Expressive Arts. But I'd love for listeners to think about this and let me know how I'm sure many of them are already doing this, finding ways that their passion projects and their self-expression are touching and improving the lives of others.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I love that, Erin. Well said, well said. And my whole creativity, God, need to talk if you're going to be on the radio. I have gone into that whole area now. This is all about giving back now. All of my work is revolving around having women, early detection for cancer consciousness, but early detection, how to, because I had a very rare form of ovarian cancer, and I just sat down with my surgeon last week for my 9-month you're still okay, cancer-free checkup. And she said, if I'd waited another 2 or 3 months, I would not be here now. So my whole goal now is giving back and getting women empowered in many ways, not just with that, but also, early detection, saving lives. And my work, my creative work has taken on a whole other dimension. And it is, I am having so much fun. I am
Wonderful.
having so much fun. My next book is called If Life is a Cosmic Comedy, What Am I Still Doing Here? And the subtitle is How I Kicked Cancer's Ass and Found My Mojo. And, so I am having the time of at 60 years old, having gone through what I went through. But see, this is what happens when you connect with your true creative self. And I think if you haven't, or because I have just now, and I'm still going to continue to keep doing that. I'm a work in progress, as we all are. But if you aren't there, this book is really, really helpful for that, because I'm telling you, it can take you places you didn't think you might go, And who knew? Who knew? So yes, because
who knew? Yes, that's what I'm hearing back from readers, actually. And thank you for saying all of that, Servette. I mean, what a testimony to harnessing your experiences and applying your self-expression to making the world better and to bringing more humor into your own life. That's what I'm hearing back from so many of the readers, is that experience of, I had no idea. I had no idea this was in me. I had no idea I was capable of this. I thought that I didn't want to share this, but now that I'm sharing it, other people are telling me how much it's helping them. And these are just average people, your neighbors, your friends, folks who never even really necessarily had an interest in art, self-expression, or creativity, but by following the ideas in the book have opened themselves and their loved ones to a whole new world.
Yes. Amen. Okay. We've had like I said, I could have done this for hours, but I can't, but we will have you back, and you're on to new and bigger things. And, so we're going to have you back on the show again. I know, Erin, anytime soon, but the name of the book is Yoga for the Creative Soul. It's Erin Byron that's on the line with us, and it's ErinByron. You have been absolutely delightful. I highly recommend the book for people. It can help you in ways you don't even know. And the yoga part of it is just the tip of the iceberg. The whole yoga thing. It's a whole package. It's not just the poses and the workout part. It's a whole mind, body, spirit connection. And I love that. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. I just got a text. Very good show. Let Erin know I really enjoyed listening to her. The name of the listener is Catherine, calling in from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll
Shout
be in
out
Arizona
to you.
in March.
She had no question, but she just wanted to say, I don't have a question, but very good show, and she really enjoyed you. So there you go. And
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Servette. What a great chat.
Oh, I know. I loved it. And you're going to be in Arizona in March, so let's just say that right now because she's still listening. So I hope.
Thanks, Catherine. See you in March, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Erin. Thank you, and have a really good night, and good luck with the book. Okay?
Thank you, too.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night. What a great show. I love her. Oh, anyway, all good news. New things coming up. We have a really good show next week. It's live. I don't know who, but we'll tell you soon. You'll hear. And then at the end of the month, I have a real witch calling in from South Africa. Oh, no, Australia. She's very famous in Australia, and she's going to be calling in for a show then. So we've got some good shows coming up. My website is brand new, ServetHassan.com, ServetHassan.com. It's been there forever. It's not new like that, but it's been redone, revamped. We're revamping everything, including all of the equipment and everything for iHeart. It's going to change, so we won't have difficulty with people calling in, those kinds of things. So I appreciate you putting up with that. But it's all going to change very soon, and I am, if you want to go to the new website, it's I'm still available for private consultations. It talks about all of the new things I'm going to be doing. There's a new blog that'll be up soon, probably at the first of the year. Everything's going to launch at the first of the year. And we also have kickcancersass.com. So we're working hard on all of those things, new and improved things coming very soon. In the meantime, I have to say, be you to the full, because that's what's truly beautiful. That's what makes your life happen. That's what makes your life work. You can do vision boards. You can do all these other things. You can take a new class or listen to a new tape. But really in the end, and that's why I like this book we were just talking about, because it really does connect you to your true authentic self by tapping into your creativity, figuring out what it is you want to express, and then understanding that you can create the life of your dreams. And that's what it's all about. That's what we're here for, and to help other people and give back. So be you to the full. It's what's really, truly beautiful. I love you all. Thank you so much. Tune in next week. We'll be live, and good night.